I don't have a good joke for you this morning, so that's not going to wake you up. But how about this? I asked a question when we asked a couple of the other commandments. How many people here, who's brave enough, I want to see hands, how many people here have ever told a lie? Okay, those of you that are not raising your hand, you just broke a commandment in the Bible. Because I don't care who you are, this is what happens. At some point in our life, we have told lies, we have gossiped, we have somehow bore false witness against our sisters and our brothers in some way, shape, or form. So that's what we are going to talk about this morning. And this commandment, as we're ending this series, this is number 9, and this commandment is one that affects the whole world. And it stands alone, and what I mean by that is that you don't even need to believe in God or have a relationship or a Christian identity to understand that this is still a good commandment to have. That we should live by this commandment that says we shall not lie, we shall not bear false witness, and we should enhance the relationships that we have. It's just a good standard to live by, and one that from when we are kids, we are told, do not lie. You know, I remember growing up, my father would always say, John, you will be in less trouble if you just tell me the truth, but if you lie, you're going to make it worse on yourself. And that was very true. But we're told, don't lie, it's not good. You know, just tell the truth, all of these things. But lying, bearing false witness seems to be a way of life. It seems to be how we operate a lot of times. It almost seems like that is our default position for a lot of people, to bear false witness or to lie. Not necessarily to do harm, but to protect ourselves, to make ourselves look better. So it is a big, big deal. And as a result, the church, us as individuals, our relationships, the world suffers because of it. Because we do not know the truth. We perpetuate lies and false truths and half-truths and all of these things that lead to everything except peace. So, very important. I mean, it's not very hard to see this in our world today. I mean, especially today that we are in an election year. And you can see the politics in all of these presidential candidates, whether they are Democrat or Republican or any of them, they base their campaigns on lies. They base their campaigns on bearing false witness against the people they are running against in these half-truths. And then we as the American people, you know, we just believe what everybody tells us, or we think, so-and-so said this, it must be the truth. Oh, so-and-so said that, well, that is the truth. Well, did you bother to look it up, or did you bother to ask the hard questions yourselves, or do you just accept all of this? And because we accept these things and we don't look, relationships are harmed. Our relationship with God is harmed. Our relationship with how we interact with people may be a little different because we think something may be true, but it's not. It really does change the way we interact. I heard a story where, and I thought it was a good metaphor, and this person went and talked to this rabbi and said, you know, how am I going to understand the power of what my words mean, and the power of what I say really carries some weight? And this rabbi said, okay, what I want you to do is go buy a chicken. Okay, and on your way home, I want you to pluck feathers from this chicken and drop them on the ground. And just make yourself till you get home. And of course, this person buys a chicken and drops the feathers and all of that. And then the guy says, okay, the next morning, I want you to wake up and I want you to go collect all of those feathers. And of course, you know, she goes back the next day and she does not have all of the feathers. Sure, she's picked up a few, but some have blown away, some have been lost, some have been picked up from other people and carried off. And the rabbi said, this is the lesson about lying. It's very easy to drop those feathers, but impossible to pick them all up again. And that's what we tell our kids, and that's what we tell ourselves. You know, we can say anything we want, but we can never take it back. You know, once it's out there, it's out there. We can apologize, we can do this, we can do that, but once it is said, the damage is done. And then we are in the job of repairing the damage instead of building relationships. You know, again, maybe lying is the default position for a lot of people. I read this article that said in 1993, the New York State Port Authority put out a job description, and they said that they are looking for people who have expertise in Sontag connectors, okay? And they need people to fill these positions. And as a result, they got 1,700 applications for this position that they needed to fill. Well, there's no such thing as a Sontag connector. Okay, there's no such, they made up this word, and the point of it was they wanted to see how many people actually will falsify their applications. And they found out that quite a bit did. Sure, I have these expertise. Sure, I have this. Sure, I do this. And then you find out very quickly that you can't. It messes with things, and it puts people in bad positions in all of this. This is why it was so important that of all of the things that God could have put on these 10 commandments and on these tablets, God said, "Thou shalt not bear false witness," because it breaks relationships. It breaks down society. And some say the only thing that keeps our society going is those of us that say that we will tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help me God. That those that hold the truth and share the truth are making up for all of the other things that are out there that are destroying that. And that's kind of tough. But how many of us, especially here in the church, not just here at Oakland, but the big church, how many of us actually commit ourselves to not lying about things, to not bearing false witness against people? Because as humans, that's what we do. We get together with our groups of friends and our family, and more times than not, we start to say, "Did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear this? Oh, I heard this." And you talk. And then what happens is they start to talk. And they say, "Well, I was talking to so-and-so and I heard this." And of course, we don't get all of this facts straight of the story, so we start to interject some of our own facts and our own story into it before it becomes so outlandish, we don't even know what the truth is any longer. But yet that's what the Bible is calling us to do, is to live differently from the world and not bear false witness and not lie. And I'm going to put gossip in here as well, because that's exactly what gossip is that we are just sharing information that, one, we should not be sharing, and two, we are probably interjecting some myth into that. And I am talking to myself this morning as well, because I am just as guilty about saying things to certain people or not saying things. It is something that we all struggle with. I'm not saying that we are perfect. What I'm saying is that we are called to a different standard. We are called to live as God is calling us to live, not the world. And here's the thing that I think is the most important part of this commandment, of why God says, "Thou shalt not bear false witness," is because no relationship will grow. No relationship will be healthy if it is based on lies. I don't care who you are. Now, it may start out okay. Well, yeah, I'm lying. I have everything fooled, and it's okay. I can keep this going. But at some point, that's going to fall apart. At some point, the truth is found out, and damage is done. So it is very important. Build on the truth. Build on the truth. No amount of lies, no matter what we say, is going to change the truth. It will be made known at some point. We think, "Oh, I can cover this up and I can keep it going." And maybe that's true. I'm sure we can keep lies going for a very long time, but it takes a toll. Not only does it take a toll on that relationship, it takes a toll on our stress levels, and then we got to remember what lie we told, then we got to tell another lie to cover that up, and it just becomes this giant snowball that sometimes we cannot control any longer. So God says, knowing that, why are you even going to do it? Just don't even let these things come out of your mouth. Speak the truth. Even if it is tough, speak the truth. Again, it is tough. But why do we lie? Now, I want to convict some of us, including myself. If I was honest this morning and said, "Well, why do I tell lies?" It is not to protect somebody. Sure, we tell those little lies. "Hey, do I look fat in this?" "No, you look okay." okay? I'm not talking about those type of lies, okay? I'm talking about lies that really matter. That I decide that I'm going to twist the truth, and there's really only one reason I'm doing that. There's really only one reason why people really do that, and that is to make myself look better. That is to make myself feel better. That is to make my pride inflated. I'm going to tell this lie because it makes me look good. Or I'm going to tell this lie because I do not like the person, because I want revenge, or I want to hurt somebody. So I'm going to share this information even though I know it is not quite the truth. And again, you can look at the political ads that we see. You can look at a lot of different areas and say, yep, that's exactly why are they doing it. They are tearing somebody else down so that they can climb back up. That is what we are trying to not do. We don't need to protect ourselves if we just don't lie in the first place. But this lie, this bearing false witness, it destroys God, our relationship with God, and our relationship with each other. And I know I keep repeating that this morning, but that is the main point of this commandment. Do not destroy your relationships. And if you destroy your relationships with each other, by default, I am destroying my relationship with God. I cannot have a relationship with God on a level that I want to have a relationship with God if I am lying and gossiping and bearing false witness against my brothers and my sisters. It is just not possible. So we have to work at that. We have to work at that. And here's the other thing, okay? You may be saying, well, I don't bear false witness or I don't lie, but you might keep your mouth shut. Okay? And what I mean by that is you might be in the presence of people who are doing that and lying and gossiping about somebody, and yet we remain silent. And let me tell you that remaining silent, we are just as guilty. We are just as guilty if we are in the presence of a lie and we do nothing to change that. You know, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who I've mentioned before, he has a statement, and he says that, let me read this because I'm going to get this wrong, but it says, silence in the face of evil is evil. Okay? Silence, if you do not speak, you are just as guilty. Just as guilty. And think about all of the things that have happened because other people have kept their mouth shut. Other people have chose not to speak. But you got to understand, because part of that quote too says, not to speak is to speak. Understand that this morning. That I am no better by just keeping my mouth shut. And this has social justice implications as well. I mean, you can think about it, and I know we have a multitude of different views on different topics in here, okay? But let's think about Muslims for an instance. You know, a lot of people like to portray Muslims as these radical fundamentalists, and we say nothing and don't let anybody understand that, you know what? Not all Muslims are like that, so we have to be careful with how we label people. Not all groups are the way we think they are. But we have a habit of painting in broad strokes. We have a habit of having a bad experience or seeing something that we don't agree with, or one group of people or one person in a group of people does something, and we have a habit of saying, well, then all people in that group must be like that. All people must. That is not the truth. And if I do not say that or speak that out, I am guilty of perpetuating that lie as well. Case in point, I don't know how many people here, and I'm going to get his name wrong, but this past week there was an article by Stengel. What's his first name? Stiegel? Okay. He wrote this article, okay, and it said Generation Cupcake. And he started going about this, the younger generations, how they are lazy, how they don't want to work, how they are horrible, all of these things. And then people in that generation decided, you know what? I'm going to tell him he's lying, because this is not the truth. This is not who we are. But what he did was what all of us do. He had a bad experience with one group of people, and he said the entire generation is like that. And he painted with a broad stroke. But people spoke up. And people said, you know what? You were wrong. And look I am working hard, and I am not lazy, and I am a productive member of society. And that caused him to write an apology, to say that he was wrong. But he can never take back those words that he used. We do that. We paint in those broad strokes because we don't really care. It's not worth our time. And we just think, and I think it is a generational thing. Each generation thinks they are the best generation. And each generation thinks that the generations below them are horrible. I mean, it's just our human nature. I don't know. But we can't paint in those broad strokes from the silliest thing to the biggest thing. We have to speak up. So I love the fact that these people in the generation, the current generation, wrote in and said, "Listen, you are wrong," and then listed all of the things they were doing. Instead of just, let's read this and everybody says, "Yep, he's right." No, we are often wrong. Do not bear false witness. And some of this happens without us even thinking. Okay, I'm not saying that we are all calculated and that we all are trying purposely to hurt people, but sometimes when we gossip, we don't even realize that we are doing damage to somebody's reputation or somebody's image, or however you want to word that, especially living in a small town. I mean, people know things before I even do them. Before I even have the idea in my head, there's something, "Oh, John did this." I'm like, "What? I didn't do that." It happens. We put things together. We hear one part of the story, and then we share that part of the story with somebody else. It's like that old kids game where you speak in one person's ear and you go down the line. It's no different. "Oh, did you hear that John got pulled over?" "Well, yeah, I heard that. I heard that John was fighting with Amanda in the car, and that's why they got pulled over. Oh, I heard that John was fighting, but then he was also drinking in the car. And then I'm pretty sure he was texting. And you know what? I think an elephant showed up somehow, and this elephant tipped the car over, and John got out, and he had all, and it just gets so messed up. And before I know it, I am an alcoholic, and I beat my wife, and I ride an elephant." It happens. We laugh, but that's exactly what happens. We share half-truths, and then those half-truths become quarter-truths until it goes down the line, and the entire story was, and if somebody just came to me, well, I could say, "Well, yeah, I got pulled over. It's because I just was speeding." Or, "I got pulled over because I did," just come. But we don't do that. We decide that it's better and easier just to share the lies or to spread the lie. "Well, I don't like John that much anyway, so I don't really care. I'm going to tell everybody that he murdered somebody." Whatever it is. It's not what we are called to do. I want to call our attention to Matthew 18, and it'll be up on the screen. And hopefully, they put it in the message. It says this, starting with the 15th verse. "If a fellow believer hurts you, go and tell him. Work it out between the two of you. If he listens, you've made a friend. If he won't listen, take one or two others along, so the presence of witnesses will keep things honest, and try again. If he still won't listen, tell the church. If he won't listen to the church, you'll have to start over from scratch. Confront him with the need for repentance and offer God's forgiving love. Take this most seriously. A yes on earth is a yes in heaven. A no on earth is a no in heaven. What you say to one another is eternal. I mean this. When two of you get together on anything at all on earth and make a prayer of it, my Father in heaven goes into action. And when 2 or 3 of you are together because of me, you can be sure that I will be here." How many of us live by this standard in the 18th chapter of Matthew? Not many. Not many of us even think people are worth it to say, "You know what? I've heard this. I'm going to go to the person and I'm going to ask." Imagine if we did, but we don't. We'd rather have that broken relationship, and we'd rather perpetuate lies and gossip instead of taking the time and energy to go to somebody. "John, I heard you got pulled over, and I heard all of these crazy things. What happened?" Or, "John, I heard this or that." Oftentimes I think I would be okay if somebody asked me a very personal question, even though, "Well, why are you asking this?" But at least I would feel like I could at least tell them the truth and have a chance to tell them, as opposed to them just assuming things. But this Matthew 18, Go to each other. And I don't think it's just meaning, if I have a conflict with somebody, but even the gossip and the lies, figure out if what you're saying is even true. Figure out, go to these people and say, let's talk. Let's figure this out, because the relationship means something. And we're called to not bear false witness, so I don't want to continue sharing a story if somebody asks me. Well, how about if somebody asks you to begin with, you can just say, well, I don't know. That's a tough thing too, because we want to know, or we want people to think we know. We don't want to be out of the loop per se. But sometimes the best thing we can say is, I don't know, you're going to have to go ask them. That is part of what we are called to do. Go talk to each other. I mean, how many relationships that you have would still be intact if you did this? How many churches would not have split if we talked to each other? How many marriages would not end in divorce if they talked to each other? How many friendships would not fail if we just talked to each other? Or how many family situations would be a little better if we just learned to talk and go to each other instead of assuming and listening to other people, bearing false witness and gossiping? So there was no elephant involved? Good to know. Just ask. Go. It's hard to do. A lot of us don't even want to do that. But that's what we are called to do. We should know the truth before we speak anything. But again, what fun is that? What fun is that? And it takes hard work. And it takes energy, and it takes us caring about each other on a level that God calls us to care about each other, to safeguard that relationship. But we are in a throwaway society. That's the sad truth. And that doesn't mean just material things. We throw away relationships all of the time and marriages all of the time because we are just not willing to put in the work and talk to each other. So we give up and we walk away. We are not called to do that. We are called to a higher standard. We are called to something bigger than that. I think when we put together profiles in the Church of the Brethren, when we're looking at churches, one of the questions that always speaks to me, and I think is a great question, says, what de-energizes you as a pastor? And I will tell you, one of the biggest things that I get frustrated about, and sometimes as a New Yorker really comes out in me, and I can be classified as a jerk sometimes, is when people start to hurt those relationships and starts to play games within the church. Did you hear about so-and-so? Did you hear about this? Did you do this? Or did you hear that so-and-so got this? When they have no idea what they are talking about. And then it harms the church, and we wonder why the church is fractured. And nobody wants to stand up to anybody. But it takes some people to say, you know what? We need to hold each other accountable. And if you want to know the truth, you need to go to the person. This isn't about games, and this isn't about somebody who upsets you. This is about the kingdom of God, and we need to take it seriously. So I used to think I had to soften myself sometimes and say, I need to go talk to this person, but I'm going to have to do it in such a way that doesn't offend them and coddle people. And you know what? I've been in ministry almost 20 years, and I'll tell you this, I'm not coddling anybody when it comes to that. And you can like that or not. But I'm getting to a point where I need to take some things seriously, including myself, and I need to be held accountable just like that. But sometimes we need to stand up and we say, that is not the truth. That is not right, and we need to fix this. And some people don't like that, and they leave. That's their problem. We are called to build a church that is in unity and has relationships with each other, even if we don't really like each other. But we're called. Dietrich Bonhoeffer kind of gets it in part of that quote too, and I should have put it up there now that I'm thinking about it. It says that God will not hold us guiltless. Do we take that serious? God will not tolerate when we do this and relationships break. God will not hold us guiltless. So when I stand before God, I'm going to be accountable. We take this serious. Imagine the transformation that could happen if we did this, if we talk to each other, if we just go to them. Imagine the world, how it would be different if we just said, okay, that one part might be true, but that is not true across the board. Or no, that's not exactly how it happened. Or you know what, I'm not going to share with you my thoughts because I don't even know if they're true, so go talk to the person or figure it out for yourself. That's our job, our duty, our wrestling match. But life is more than lies and gossip. We are called to be honorable people. We are called to be God's light bearers in this world, and we are not going to be able to bear this light that can overcome darkness if we lie and we bear false witness. Transformation happens when we let God change us. And once God can change us, we can help change our actions. And that will enhance our relationship. And that's up to you. I don't know where you are on that. You wrestle with that. Do I lie? Do I gossip? What do I need to do to make that better? And I'm not saying we're not going to have those moments where we fall. I'm just saying we need to be conscious of it and say, okay, it's time. You know, in Illinois, when I was on the fire department, okay, it was like being back in high school. Okay, you know, and they would talk about other people, and they would gossip, and they would talk about horrible things sometimes. And a lot of times I found myself thinking, well, you know, I want to be part of the group, and so I need to let them talk, but I need to be quiet. And then I started thinking, well, you know what, I'm just being guilty because I'm there with them. Guilt by association. So I started to remove myself from those conversations. Or I just would walk away, or change the topic. Little things. But we had to be conscious of it. Because, you know, people look to us. And if I don't say anything, sometimes people will accept the truth that they hear because they'll say, well, John was there, and I think John would have said something if this wasn't true. But John was silent, so it must be true. Again, I'm not saying that's the correct way of thinking, but that's how we think. So-and-so should have said something and they didn't, so it must be true. Their silence speaks. You know, we're going to close today with St. Teresa's prayer. And these words speak to this commandment. Christ be in my mind and in my thinking. Christ be in my eyes, in everything that I see, in my ears, in my hearing. Christ be in my mouth, in every word I speak. Our words matter. They will either build up or tear down. Those are the two choices we have. And if we're going to build up, this commandment means something. This commandment should not be broken. So may Christ be in our speaking to each other, to the world, and show them how things can be different. So let us pray. Lord, it is tough to let you speak through us, but that's what we are called to do. So be with us in our relationships. Be with us when we are at work, when we are with our friends, and hold us to a different standard. That we can try to not gossip. That we can try to not bear false witness. Help us to build each other up instead of tear each other down. So Lord, wherever we may find ourselves this morning, whether we are doing great at that or whether we need a lot of help, be with us. Work on our hearts, our minds, and our tongues, so that when we speak, you can be made known. So as we leave this place and the light goes out before us, may we understand that that light means something to this world, and our words matter. And I leave you with this one sentence that I love out of the 18th chapter of Matthew. What you say to one another is eternal. I mean this. Those are the words of Christ. May we make those our words as well. And one final time this morning, all of God's people said, Amen.